this admittedly has got legs a bit more than some of the other projects some of the other guys are working on. But I still think some of the rest of the band, probably before the Cradle tour, probably thought it's still just a bit of fun. And I think after the Cradle tour, everyone's sort of woken up a bit and gone, wow, this is really going places.
Greetings, Legion. Welcome to episode 251 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, I am very pleased to be welcoming back the great and powerful Aaron Stainthorpe of My Dying Bride, now also with High Parasite. High Parasite have just put out a new album, their debut, entitled Forever We Burn. And Aaron was on hand alongside his High Parasite brother-in-arms, Tombs, known to friends and family as Danny Lambert, to talk about the record, to talk about how the band got together. We also spoke about their recent tour with Cradle of Filth. And as you would expect, we had to get a bit of an update on what's been happening in the My Dying Bride camp. It is a great conversation. Aaron was in fine form, as was Tombs. It's going to be coming your way very shortly. But first, I want to introduce you to a band who recently got in touch with me. I say band. They are more of a dynamic duo. They hail from Belfast. They are called Pincer Consortium. Their debut album is entitled The Geminis Schism. I absolutely love it, and I think you guys are all going to agree. So to get you fired up and good and ready for this week's action, this is a track called Alpha Omega Decay. Off their debut album, Geminis Schism, that was Pincer Consortium with Alpha Omega Decay. That album is available right now on Bandcamp. Head over there, buy yourself some music. Let them know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere who sent you fantastic stuff there, particularly considering that it's their debut album. Both men have been involved in other bands, but I believe that this is now their primary musical concern, and it is absolutely sensational. Speaking of sensational, the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse fill your week with sensational entertainment from Monday to Sunday. On a Monday, we've got Horrible 666, courtesy of Brandon Legion. On a Tuesday, yours truly casts hexes and slays poses on Into the Necrosphere. On a Wednesday, Sensei Mike Hill of the bands Tombs and Scorpion Throne brings you another episode of Everything Went Black. We double up your pleasure on a Wednesday because Cheyenne of the band Trivax gifts you another deployment of Iblis Manifestations. On a Thursday, Sensei Michael returns. He's joined by his co-hosts, Sheriff Mike Scondado and Professor Jeff Kashid, for another installment of Necromaniacs, one of my favorite podcasts of the week. A perfect way to get you set up for your weekend's entertainment. They review new and old horror movies, and I make sure that I never miss an episode. We also have on a Thursday the first of 2 installments of Soul Knox, a curated journey through the dark, the weird, the arcane, and the esoteric. The second of which comes your way on a Sunday, and that, of course, is hosted by the sinister minister, the Reverend Carl Haikara. My friends, if you like what I do, please make sure that you follow me on the socials. If you can, and the spirit moves you to do so, leave me a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Music. Share the episodes, share the content, as many of you already have done. That really, really helps me claw my way up the algorithm. And the more that I'm able to do that, the bigger and better the show becomes. That being said, doesn't get much bigger and better than Aaron Stainthorpe and Tombs of High Parasite. That's going to be coming your way in just a minute. Don't go anywhere when we're done talking, because I've got an hour and about 10 minutes worth of profanity-laced news rant coming your way, where I'm also going to be doing some Q&A. So we're going to listen to some new music by bands like Grima, Saor, and a bunch of others. I'm going to be answering your questions, so that's coming your way in just a few moments. But first, let's welcome to Into the Necrosphere, High Parasite. Well, welcome to Into the Necrosphere, young man. You guys you finished up the Cradle of Filth tour last week, if I'm not mistaken?
Friday, yeah.
Friday. How was that?
Oh, yeah, it was great.
When I spoke to Lisa, she said, and I assume that that this may well be the case, that you'll have plenty of tour stories to tell. So I expect tales of orgies, rampant LSD and heroin use, like real Motley Crue kind of stuff.
Oh,
so spill it.
Not in the modern world.
No shit. That is something like. I've often spoken about it on the show, and a lot of people have mentioned before. Can you imagine if there were cell phones around in the kind of peak days of Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue?
Everybody would be in jail.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
All right. I think Aaron has just joined us now, so let me add him. Aaron, how are you doing?
Good evening. I'm well. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you very much. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see. Nice to see Mr. Tombs.
Tombs. He was just busy telling me now that apparently you went all out on this last tour, and he said the tales of depravity and drug abuse would absolutely make my hair stand on end.
Well, don't like to brag.
But man's got to do what a man's got to do.
There we go.
So how was the tour? There was in a roundabout way what I was getting at. First tour, you guys were out together as a band, out with a modestly prolific band as well in the scene. So good audience, good sized audience to play to, I would imagine. How do you guys feel about it now that that's behind you?
I think it went brilliantly. We couldn't have asked for a better start. Your dog's in as well.
I was just about to say, just bear with me whilst she takes care of herself. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, sorry. You were saying
mine's currently eating a cardboard box. Stop it.
What type of dog do you have?
She's an American Bulldog crossed with a Staffy.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
There we go. So I can tell just from the look on her face, she's probably got a very similar temperament to this one. It's the begging to lie in bed with you and being treated like a child. I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah.
But that one is very cute, by the way. What's her name?
Stella.
Okay, cool. So you can, and did you call her that so you can do the whole like what's that movie called? Streetcar Named Desire. Stella.
Yeah, my wife named her. That's where she got it from.
It's a great name. Back to the tour. So first tour done. How we were talking about how it went.
Yeah, we couldn't have asked for a better start. We really couldn't. Everybody was brilliant. James, the tour manager who was running the whole circus, was super helpful and friendly. And every show was really good. We were really well received, and across the board it was just positive all the way. A lot of positive comments, a lot of new friends. So yeah, all good from my point of view.
Yeah, same here. It was amazing. It was a great start, really. To land a support slot of this magnitude normally takes a band a few years at least.
Yeah.
To earn their stripes, to show that they're worthy of being asked to go on tour with a band like Cradle, and we were asked to go on tour. The album wasn't even out, so it's remarkable, really. And as Danny said, we made a lot of new friends. The tour manager was super helpful. He said he'd work with us again, which is great. So we look forward to some more offers in the future.
This was your first time out on the road in a while, Aaron, because I think the last time that you would have played before this, unless I'm mistaken, would have been the shows that you did with Paradise Lost last year in December.
We also did the 70,000 tons of metal cruise ship.
Oh, yes, of course.
In January. That was the last show. We did a show on the way out to the Dominican Republic and a show on the way back. That was the last time My Dying Bride performed. But also, previous to that, My Dying Bride really only sort of flew out to various parts of the world to do summer festivals and what have you. Mm-hmm. We haven't toured for a long band. So for me to actually be on the road touring gig after gig after gig, I've not done that for about 10 years, maybe longer. So, it was something of a wake-up call, because, again, My Dying Bride were in such an elevated position where we could have a tour bus. High Parasite have to build up the reputation to enable us to have a tour bus, and at the moment we don't have a tour bus. But we'll get there eventually. So it was hard work. There was some long hours. Even though it was the UK, there was whoever organises tours. They sort of, you would think, right, let's start there and work our way down. But of course, it doesn't. The bottom, they're right back up to the top again, and there's hours and hours and hours of driving. Had we had a tour bus, it would have been brilliant, but we didn't. But we made the best of it. And Greg's are a lot richer now because of this tour.
So what were the logistics like? I mean, if without a tour bus, were you guys just going around in a van, taking, car convoy? How did you set things up?
We did it in a van, just a splitter van, which I was driving.
So proper old school.
Yeah, we had a brilliant front of house guy called Les come with us. And a couple of guys helping us out, Paul and Bob, who were working as crew for us, and then the 5 bands, so there's 8 of us in the van, and going to trusty old travel lodges. Yeah,
I was going to ask, as far as hotels are concerned, where did you guys stay? But you've preempted that. But Aaron, one observation that I'll make: I didn't see you guys at any of the dates that you played, but I saw some clips, and I know a couple of people that saw you guys at the various dates that you guys did. The one thing that I spotted straight away, just watching you on stage, you looked like you were absolutely in your element. Like, when you can just tell somebody is enjoying the, every second of the experience. I'm curious to understand whether or not I misread that, or whether I'm correct. But you really, really seem to be having the time of your life.
Yeah, well, I am, because after 30 odd years of performing with My Dying Bride, I finally realised I can actually enjoy myself on stage. And that's not to take anything away from MDB, but their songs are so deep and heavy and emotional. It makes performing live an arduous task for me, and I've never really enjoyed it. But High Parasite songs aren't as deep as My Dying Bride songs. And so I'm able to sort of enjoy myself a bit more on stage, which I'm completely not used to that. And with Tombs doing some of the vocals as well, it frees up even more time for me on stage to figure out, shall I run over there or shall I run over there? Which I never did with My Dying Bride, because it wouldn't work. So you
well, to say it's not exactly a running band, My Dying Bride. It's not a band that you.
High Parasite is becoming a running band. And again, when we did the first few shows, I had no idea what I was supposed to do on stage, because I've done the same thing with MDB for 30 years. When you're on stage with another band playing different music, I was thinking to myself, what am I supposed to do when I'm not actually singing? I mean, my dancing is poor, to say the very least. So, I mean, I can pull a menacing shape if I have to. But, I am still learning my stagecraft with High Parasite. And the Cradle Tour was a great way for me to practice, I suppose. And I'm going to get better, because I spoke to the rest of the guys. I want a cordless microphone, because I realize that if I am going to move around a bit more, I'm pulling this lead everywhere, and I'm making sure everyone's not tripping over it, including myself. It restricts you. But that was fine with MDB. But I feel that I have much more freedom of physicality on stage with High Parasite. So I want a radio mic, so I can go way over there and way over there without worrying that someone's going to walk back and trip over my lead. So I think, I'm not going to be Bruce Dickinson. I'm not going to be running up and down and, all that stuff. But there is more movement, because the music warrants that movement from each member of the band. Poor old Dan stuck behind the drum kit. He's dying to run around. The rest of us, the music gives you that urge to move. You can't help it. Even people who've never heard of High Parasite before, you can see them nodding their heads and dancing a bit, because the choruses are so catchy, and it's a lively event when we play live. And I would like to sort of take that on board and become a bit more energetic on stage. As I say, I'm not going to be running around, but more freedom of movement is very welcome.
So, Danny, how did the relationship and the working relationship between you and Aaron, how did that start? And let me ask a supplementary question to that as well. Did that precede High Parasite coming into being, or did you guys specifically connect in order to start the band?
So I've known Az for knocking on 20 years now. I work as a guitar tech for my day job. And I started working with MDB in December 2007. That's how long ago it was. And I worked with them on and off for many years, and Aaron and I built up a friendship over those years. And then I've always written music, been in bands, and I'd written this music, and I could hear death metal vocals on it, but I can't do them. So I got in touch with Darren, and I said, would you mind helping me out and put some death metal vocals on this track? I think it's got legs. And that was what became the track Parasite. And then things just sort of snowballed from there. But the initial start of the band was very innocent. It was just I had a piece of music that I wanted to do justice to with some decent vocals, so I got in touch with Az, and then everything else just, like I say, just snowballed from there. And that's been nearly 3 years now.
Aaron, what did you think when when Danny first approached you about, this becoming something that, more than just guest vocals on a track?
Well, there wasn't a point like that because it just evolved slowly over time. I thought when the first song arrived, I thought, okay, I'm just helping a friend out with a project, and I'm happy to do that. I've done guest vocals on numerous things, and I thought this was just another one of those. And then another song came in, and we worked on that together, and another song, and we realised that we're gelling very, very well together, and this could be something. So we went and we did a demo tape in Manchester. I said demo tape. We did a demo in Manchester, and that came out remarkably well. And then we kind of touted that to the labels. And once label interest started to arrive, that's when I told My Dying Bride, look, I thought I was just messing around with a chum, but we seem to be getting labels involved. So I'm now in another band as well as My Dying Bride. And Andy said, good luck with that. And then on came the record labels, and we signed the deal, and off we went and did the first album, and it was great. But at no point did Danny say, Aaron, will you join the band? And at no point did I say, can I be in the band? We realized that the way we work is becoming so solid that we are just a band. You don't have to pick who's in and who's out. We just developed as a band, and it was a natural evolution. There was no one day where I joined. It just happened.
How supportive were the My Dying Bride folk when you told them that this is getting legs? I'm going to be a superstar. There's labels getting involved. Were they all right about it? How supportive were they?
As relaxed as everyone else is, because apart from Andy, literally everybody in fact, literally every musician I know is in more than one band. So I think they just kind of thought, whatever, we're not that interested. Dan's in 1,000 bands. Dan Mullins, Sean's done some stuff. Neil's in other bands, and I think they just thought it's just someone else in MDB just doing something else. Why would you object to that? This admittedly has got legs a bit more than some of the other projects some of the other guys are working on. But I still think some of the rest of the band, probably before the Cradle tour, probably thought it's still just a bit of fun. And I think after the Cradle tour, everyone's sort of woken up a bit and gone, wow, this is really going places. But it's still, you look at Greg who produced the album. How many bands is he in? It's, as I say, nearly every musician I know is in more than one band and copes with it quite easily. And so far, so good for me. I mean, I have no idea how big High Parasite are going to get, but I'd like to think MDB are still there. And if something happens and they're not, well, that'd be a crying shame because we've been at it for 3 decades. But I think I can juggle being in 2 bands quite easily.
Yeah, and I think you also get to a point in your life where I would imagine you want to express yourself creatively in different ways, but a song like Let It Fail isn't necessarily going to fit a My Dying Bride record. So why constrict yourself creatively when you can have that other outlet and, as you say, quite comfortably juggle the two? Yeah,
it's great. And you look at historically, My Dying Bride have got quite big gaps between albums. Yeah. Not all the time, but quite often there's some breathing room, which you normally dedicate to touring. But MDB would only do 10 or 15 shows a year, which is not a great deal. So when you look at those gaps, those timelines, I can be in 10 bands and it wouldn't affect My Dying Bride. We can still squeeze it all. There's loads of space, so I can squeeze it all in. And that's why my poetry's become a bit of a thing now. I'm doing a poetry reading in a church in Antwerp, in Belgium, on the 25th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that'll be great. And that's with Mark Deeks from Ard, Joe Quayle's playing the electric cello, Sylvain and Dark Her all on the same bill. So there's things I want to do, which I'm now doing. I'm finding time to do things. I think I can sense the Grim Reaper not far behind me. And actually, it's my birthday tomorrow. So,
I'm about to say, I'll raise a toast.
Thank you
Happy
very much.
birthday in advance.
As I get a bit older, I'm thinking to myself, those ideas you've had sat on a shelf forever. It's now. So I'm firing loads of stuff out, and I might be doing a music project with Mark from Arth as well. So there's loads of stuff I really want to do, and I've now got the time to do them.
So, Danny, just as far as the writing is concerned, you guys mentioned that you'd started working on different things. It's interesting when I listen to the record because I can definitely hear an evolution in the songwriting across the different songs. Like, and again, I'm more sense checking my own assumptions here than anything else. But if I listen to a song like "Hate Springs Eternal," that to me sounds like one that would maybe have been written a little later in the cycle. And part of why I say that is because that is a track that it's my favorite song on the album. It's a real peak. I love the interplay between the two of you on that song. It feels so natural and so effortless. And it just feels like that's to me like the song where it feels like everything is really sort of locked in. So if you're about to tell me that's the second song that you wrote, that's gonna blow my assumptions out of the water. But I was listening to the record the other day, and I this started kind of playing in my mind, like, okay, how would the process here have worked with the songwriting, and at what point did this one come in? Because that's always been a track that's really stood out to me ever since I first heard the record.
Well, funnily enough, it is the opposite in that that's the oldest song. That
really?
I had a version of that song with my old band. It's probably about 5 years old, but it was always missing something, and I didn't know what that something was. So in a sense, it is the newest one because it didn't come to life until I remember driving. I was driving back from Manchester back towards Leeds, and the M62 was shut, so I had to drive over the moors. And I remember writing the lyrics to the chorus and dictating them into my phone because obviously I was driving, so I couldn't write. And it just all of a sudden came together. And I think it was only a few weeks before I went into the studio. So although the music was around the longest, it took working with Aaron to sort of bring that one to life finally. So in a sense, yes, it's the oldest musically, but the newest lyrically, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that interplay between the clean and the death vocal that did bring it to life.
And I am correct in saying those are your vocals in the verse.
Yes.
You've got an incredible set of pipes on you. Like, I mean, I have a fondness for great clean singing in any case, but that it just sticks out on the record so well. And then Aaron, you come in with some of the best death metal vocals that you've ever done in the chorus. It's just absolute magic.
Well, death metal is easy for me, even though I kind of thought I might be, if I'm lucky, I can get away with doing death metal vocals for maybe 20 years before it starts to take its toll on the old throat. And yet here I am, 35 years into the music business, and I'm still able to do some fairly decent death metal vocals. And I'm really enjoying it, because it's great to sing along. A lot of My Dying Bride stuff kind of went a bit heavy and slow and emotional, so that didn't really require as much death metal vocals. And when High Parasite came along, it enabled me to scream and shout a little bit more, which is great. And I'm amazed I'm still able to do it. Goodness knows how much longer I can still get away with doing it, but while I can, I'm going to try and enjoy it.
Do you feel like it takes more of a toll on your vocal cords now that you're older than it did when you were younger?
It's difficult to say. There's quite a lot of not the deep death metal vocal, but there's quite a lot of high pitched screaming in High Parasite as well, as well as the really deep stuff, and that combination is quite tough. But thankfully, we've got the clean vocals joining in the fun as well, so it's not always Tombs that does the clean vocals. I join in as well, and that gives me a breather from doing the death metal stuff. So long as I pace myself, I think I'll be all right. If I go crazy, then yes, of course, I'll probably end up doing some damage. When we played our own headlining shows and we played for an hour, I paced myself on that, and it worked perfectly. But when we did the Cradle shows, we only had half an hour. So from the first minute, it's full on screeching and howling and holding nothing back. And at the end of it, even though it's only half an hour, at the end of it, I'm pretty spent. But it means I've held nothing back, and I've given the audience 100% of what I can possibly do. And you can't do any more than that.
Where were you guys in the lineup on that bill? Were you first support, main support? Where were you in the billing?
We were second on of a 4-band bill. Okay,
all right. And how did the audience respond to you?
Incredibly well. Every night it was, because we knew that not a lot of people would know us.
Yeah.
But I also expected to walk on stage to half-empty rooms. You know, people stay in the pub and then they go for the main band. But that wasn't the case. You know, people showed up, and there was a band from New York called Black Satellite that were on before us, and they got the crowd warmed up, and every night when we went on, people were ready for it. I think we took a lot of people by surprise, somewhat, because we were musically quite different to the rest of the bands on the bill. Far more goth rock rather than industrial metal. But we won the audiences over every night, or I feel we did. So that's what we were there to do.
It was a very interesting lineup as well, because sorry to interrupt, but it's the first sort of tour I've done. All 4 bands vocalists did clean vocals and harsh vocals. All 4. That's very unusual for all 4 singers to mix vocal styles. And I noticed from looking at the photographs, it's also one of the even rarer occasions when nearly everybody in every band on stage wore makeup of some form. You know what? We all had this going on and that and everything, and it was a real theatre event, I suppose, because when you do a lot of festivals, you get the old school guys who just show up in jeans and a t-shirt and give it the full Monty, and that's absolutely fine. Everyone dressed up on this tour. Everyone made an effort. Everyone had an outfit. No one went on in their day clothes. Everyone made an effort, and I think the crowd really applauded for that. They really warmed to it. It was great.
I'm a very big fan of spectacle on stage, and there's few things that I dislike more than a band that make me feel like I'm sitting in on a rehearsal. I've spoken about that many times before. When bands are turning, especially to me, the big no-no is a frontman that turns his back on the audience and chats with the drummer or chats with the guitarist and then turns around and the next song starts. It's like that, it breaks that engagement and it takes me out of the experience completely. So I saw you guys and how you presented yourself on stage, and I loved it. I mean, again, as I said, I've not seen you in person yet, but just from the photos and from the videos that I've seen, I think that sort of spectacle, that larger than life theater, fantastic. I'm all for it.
It looks great when it's on stage, but backstage there's so much makeup everywhere. There's clothes hanging off hangers, or everywhere you look, there's someone's clothes over there, there's someone else's clothes, there's makeup and swabs and all sorts of shit. I've never seen anything like it.
You go pretty all out with the makeup as well, Danny.
Yeah, I took a book out of it took a page out of the Wes Borland playbook. I wanted to do that.
You know what? I didn't want to mention it because I thought you might be offended, but that's the first thing I thought about when I saw you.
Oh yeah, it's been mentioned in a couple of reviews as well.
Yeah,
I've been called Goth Rock's Wes Borland a couple of times now.
You know what though? The other day I saw a video pop up, and I actually haven't watched it yet, but just the heading made me think. The headline of the video was Wes Borland, every guitarist's dirty secret. And I thought to myself, like, I kind of can see why. He is. I mean, I don't care what people think about Limp Bizkit, whether they like it or not, but he is genuinely a very gifted guitarist. You can, even on the shittiest Limp Bizkit songs, he does incredibly, incredibly inventive stuff. And he mixes in so many different influences into what eventually becomes Limp Bizkit. I can see why people would treat him as a bit of a guilty pleasure.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. It's he's got the mad scientist about him, as a lot of good musicians do, and he's an artist as well. So that a lot of that comes across in his presentation and his performance, and some of his costumes are insane.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the LED helmets and things that he goes on stage in. But I wanted to create a character. I didn't want to conceal my identity. I wasn't thinking about doing a Kiss or a Slipknot or anything like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't about that. It was about creating a persona for stage, so that there was a character, a bit playing more into the theatre of it. And then, keeping, like, I'm not wearing anything now, obviously, because, I'm not on the stage.
You're revealing your true identity now.
Put the mask back on.
But yeah, because originally we talked about, when we were getting the band together, we talked about everybody wearing a mask. And then we said, well, no, obviously, Ghost have done that and 1,000 other bands have done it. And obviously, people knowing Aaron, he can't suddenly start wearing a mask after 30 plus years of being on stage. So that wasn't going to work. But then I just thought, well, I'd like to do something. So we look like a band, but everyone's got their own little style going on.
Yeah.
So it looks like a cohesive unit, but everyone looks like an individual as well. And it was definitely a happy accident. We didn't plan it as such. It just, everyone picked something and it worked.
How did that Cradle of Filth audience receive Butcher Babies? Because I when that bill was first announced, I saw their name on the lineup and I thought, man, I don't know whether they're going to be in for a hard time with that crowd. Cradle of Filth are one of those bands where, again, love them or hate them, they're a legacy band. And generally speaking, as I'm sure you guys have seen firsthand, there are certain legacy bands that don't necessarily get an easy ride from the crowd because the crowd are there to see the headliner. So they kind of just want, particularly that main support band, which is why I asked which part of the or where on the bill you guys were, but they just want that main support band to be over and done with and get off. And it goes to extremes. I've seen bands get get pelted with stuff if they play before Slayer or they play before Morbid Angel. But Butcher Babies was an interesting inclusion for me on that bill. They didn't. I mean, I've got nothing against them, but they didn't seem to necessarily fit in with the rest of the vibe of that lineup.
I think they went down pretty well. All the bands did, to be honest. And as Danny mentioned earlier, people came early to see the last show, because the venue turned into some sort of nightclub or something. The last show, there was a very early curfew, which meant we were on at half 6 in the evening.
What?
But it was opened the doors at 5:30.
Yeah, but it was nearly full. The venue was nearly full at that point. So it just goes to show that the 4 bands were pulling a good-sized audience. People wanted to see all the bands.
Yeah.
Butcher Babies did what they did best, and they got the mosh pit going. And there was a point where Heidi gets into the audience, and they're all going round her like that, and it was absolutely nuts. It was a brilliant spectacle.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And again, one thing I've always respected about Cradle of Filth, they've been very brave always in who they take out on the road with them. I discovered Akukaka, watching or going to a Cradle of Filth show and seeing Ak opening up for them. They blew me away to such a degree that everything else after that was almost unlistenable to me. I left. I was just so mesmerized by what I'd heard. This was also in the days of the the white shirt and the black ties and the suits and stuff like that. But yeah, again, whether you're a fan or a detractor of Cradle of Filth, the one thing you cannot take away from them is maybe more than any other high-profile band, they have been fantastic at taking out bigger bands. not bigger bands, sorry, smaller bands, more known bands, and giving them a platform. And you mentioned that the conversation around this tour had taken place quite a bit prior to the album even coming out. What had kind of sparked that?
I've no idea.
The offer to do this tour came in very early on. The album was done, it was recorded, and it was ready to release, and we had a release date. And it came in through our agent, through our booking agent, because we have the same agent as Cradle. So they obviously knew that it was coming up, and they must have pulled some strings for us to get us on it very early doors. And I think because Danny knows Aaron very well, and there's a long-standing friendship there, I think that helped as well. So we got in pretty darn early on it. I think it was early March when the initial offer came in to do the tour. Just for, they've now gone out to Europe, but we did just for the UK and Ireland. But yeah, it was early March when the offer originally came in. So we've been excited about it for a long time now. It's 7 months, and then all of a sudden it's over.
There has been chit chatter going on as well about some other support slots potentially coming up for us next year. We can't mention any names, but I've got a hard on right now.
Who would be on the wish list of you guys going out to support? Absolute dream band that you would love to support.
Well, we're kind of on the same label as Rammstein, so that might be an actual plausible thing, and I'm sure that would be amazing. Although
that would, if there's even a whiff of that in the air, I absolutely understand the hard on.
Yeah. I can imagine the stage being, tape all over it saying, "Don't go there, explosives."
Danger, explosives.
Literally, just gaffer tape a small square and stay in that, because everywhere else is a fucking danger zone.
Yeah.
Rammstein are great live. If you're going to go on tour,
one of the best.
You want the band who's delivering the biggest spectacle, and it doesn't get bigger than Rammstein. So for me, probably those guys. But there's a few I'd love, but just for the sheer spectacle, probably Rammstein.
Did you see them on this most recent tour that they were on?
I did not, no.
I didn't see the most recent tour, but I saw them right before COVID when they played in Milton Keynes. And, you talk about spectacle, just walking towards that football stadium that they played in, you could see the stage kind of risen above the stands.
Yeah.
And just being there, I honestly can't even think about it without getting goosebumps. It was the most incredible thing I have ever seen in my entire life, hands down. I've been to 700-800 live shows. I've seen the UFC at ringside. I've seen WBE at ringside. I've seen just about every spectacle there is to see. I've been ringside at Platinum Lace. But Rammstein live is it's indescribable. If you've not experienced it, I don't care what kind of music you're into, there's just nothing that comes close.
Yeah. What about you, Danny?
Well, the first one on my list would have been Rammstein as well. But other than that, I know Ghost are touring next year. That would be a good support to get.
But I'd say that'd be a great support for you guys.
Yeah. I think we would connect with their fan base very well.
Tribulation just brought out a fantastic record. They should be going out on tour pretty soon. That'd be a fantastic package as well for you guys.
Yeah, it would be.
Let me ask you this question. How did Greg come to be involved in the recording and the production of the record?
I'm Greg's guitar tech, and I've been for a long, long time.
Gotcha.
And we're really good friends outside of work as well. And I just asked him if he'd do it, and he said yes. It was that simple. I sent him some stuff, and he really liked it. And he had a lot of ideas, particularly for the electronic side of things. And yeah, he jumped at the chance. I was extremely grateful. And it was an absolute pleasure to work with him, because he's a friend, but he's also a hero of mine as a songwriter. I think he's a genius.
I was just about to say it's a pleasure to work with him because he's a fucking genius. I mean, a legitimate musical genius.
Yeah. And just watching him work as well. There's not a lot that he hasn't done in a studio, and he just knows. So it was a pleasure to sit and watch him do his thing.
What blows me away about him, he's that rarefied type of musician where even when he's having an off day, like I would argue, what's the Paradise Lost album with the bees on the front?
Believe in Nothing.
Believe in Nothing. I don't know why I even forgot about it. But even when he's having an off day like he did on Believe in Nothing, it's still a 7.5, 8 out of 10 record. That.
Yeah.
When he's having, one of his best days, he creates something like The Plague Within or Medusa or Shades of God or Gothic or Icon. He's just phenomenal. And then he decides we're going to do a bit of death metal, and out comes Strigoi and Valenfire. He does this host project with Nick Holmes. The guy just doesn't seem to be able to miss at his age. Like it's another thing that I've always admired is when musicians get older. There's not all that many that don't seem to run out of creative steam. He just seems to be getting more creative as he gets older.
Yeah,
Grim Reaper.
yeah. So how much of a hand creatively did he have in the music? Like you said, he'd had ideas for some of the electronics and things like that. How much did he actually contribute to the record?
The songs were all written, and to a demo stage where I record them on Logic in my home studio, send them to us. We'd both get the vocals down, then I'd arrange it and tidy it up, send it to the band for them to learn their parts. And we were actually rehearsing a lot of them prior to recording them. So then when it got to the studio, we had these finished demos, and Greg took the electronic stuff that I'd done, which had come from Apple loops and from me making weird sounds on synths and things like that. And he took those and refined them and improved them. And then some arrangement ideas as well, maybe, rather than it being a double verse here, take half the verse out and move it. Just things like that, just to improve the flow and make things a bit more cohesive. And it was, but that's the first time I've worked with somebody being a producer, and that's what a producer does, and that's what a good producer gets the best out of the songs, because they're not emotionally attached to them.
Yeah. I think if you're knee deep in the weeds of the actual writing, sometimes it's difficult to detach yourself from it emotionally, as you say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And spot some of the things that may need refinement, or may need just a couple of screws tightened. Yeah,
you just need that outside perspective, but an outside perspective that's backed up with a hell of a lot of knowledge. And it all came out for the better,
Aaron, you mentioned stagecraft earlier, just kind of getting back to the live show. I mean, I love the fact that you're thinking about it, because I find a lot of frontmen don't. But who are some of the frontmen that you really look up to? And, if you think about how you have applied any of that influence, particularly on this tour, getting used to being in a band where you're going to have to move around more and where you're going to be the focal point. Who are the people that you really look up to, that you really admire?
Weirdly, it's or because of their lack of movement. Nick Holmes, Jonas from Catatonia. I see their static stage presence. I mean, they move a bit, but not. Again, they're not all over the place. And I always thought to myself, I wish they'd do a little bit more. not be extravagant in any way, but just do a little bit more. And I know Jonas was on the cruise ship as well, and he was moving around the stage a lot more than I've ever seen him before. And I'm thinking, wait, maybe it's because the ship was doing all this. I don't admire any particularly flamboyant performer. It's the people that don't do much that I've thought, I need to do more. I don't want to do what they're doing. No disrespect to them in any way, but I must do something else. And I tried it with My Dying Bride, and it kind of worked a little bit. But now that High Parasite's here, I'm allowed complete freedom to do whatever I want on stage. At no point did anybody say, Aaron, don't do that because it was awkward or it didn't fit, yet. But at the moment, I've just been allowed to go for it and do what I want. And I'm not a particular fan of flamboyant vocalists. So with that in mind, I can never really be accused of stealing an idea from this guy or that guy, because I don't really know that many people who do it the way I do it. So I just do it however it comes to me. The music gets your heart pounding, which gets the adrenaline flowing. And then before you know it, your arms are doing this and your legs are doing that. And you're just going along with the flow. And as I mentioned, at some point, I'll hone it to a better skill. It'll be more refined. And the way the band interact with each other on stage will become more and more slick with time. And I'm kind of looking forward to that, which is why I need the cordless microphone. I want to get involved more. I don't want to be restricted to this bit because I can't go right over to both wings. I want to be able to see the audience right on the left and as far on to the right as possible, and go right over to them and sing right in their faces, which I've never done before. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
It is interesting, though, when a vocalist is in a front band of a band goes to a new band, and that the vibe of that band is so different, and you kind of see them grow into their role as the front band for that band. David Vincent, when he was with Ultimass, I kind of felt like that. I remember seeing clips of those first few Ultimass shows, and he looked completely and utterly lost without his bass. And then I saw him play at Inferno, and I was like, oh my God, like just the level of confidence and the poise and the stage presence, like everything's there. Like he had really found his feet as the front man for this very different band to the one that he came from. But I mean, the other thing that I would imagine as front man, even though you're not necessarily a fan of the flamboyant vocalists, but if I think of Guns N' Roses live in Paris, 1993, the amount of energy that he expends, or that Axl Rose expends on stage, for the one or two times I've been on a stage looking at that, I knowing how tiring it is, I cannot conceive of doing that myself for 2 hours.
And I am not a young man, and my knees,
really
knees are shot. My knees are shot. So I mean, I quite like wandering up and down the stage now, and I quite like getting used to it. And with the Cradle tour, this is the first time, I think, even in My Dying Bride, we had risers at the front for us all to stand on. And that was brilliant. I've never had that before. And so getting on and off the risers, suddenly you're another foot higher than the audience, and you look down on them, and I'm already 6'2". It's quite a commanding presence, and they're all staring right up at you. And it's a great sensation. It's a great feeling. And I'm warming to a bit more of that now. And I think, trying to display that a bit more in the future, I think it's going to work really well. But again, I was puffing and panting a little bit, I must admit. There will be no running. There will be strolling from left to right, and perhaps stepping up to a drum. But I won't be jumping off, because my knees would smash in half, and I'd be lying on the floor for the rest of the gig.
What did your knees in?
Pardon?
What did your knees in? Like, well, what's caused the...
I think when I was a kid, I was a massive fan and extremely good at high jump, long jump, and the killer of them all, triple jump.
Oh, wow, really?
I smashed records left, right, and centre, and I won trophies till they were coming out my ears. But when you look at some of these events in slow motion, the knees get it every time. I just think years and years of doing that, it's starting to really be quite painful now. And I got them scanned a couple of years ago, and I've got arthritis in both my knees, and I will need them operating on. I stopped playing five-a-side football because that's even worse, because it's start stop twist. Swimming's good, but I know that at some point I'm going to need two knees. Then I'll start running around on stage like a fucking nutcase. Bring on the knees.
Danny, I know you're a little younger than Aaron. How do you feel on stage?
With all the outfit on, very hot.
Yeah,
I didn't quite think about that. I've always once I get into it, I'm very very mobile on stage. I always have been. It's not something I think about. It's just something that I do. And particularly now going out, because I've always ended up in past bands that I've been in. I've always been the singer, so I've been playing an instrument and singing, so I've been somewhat rooted to the mic stand. But with this, I'm not singing as much, so I've got more scope to run around, which is great. And the bigger stages also allow that, which was tremendous fun. But we've not the performance. We've never discussed anything. We didn't say, oh, we're all going to do this.
At this point, we're all going to be headbanging in unison.
Yeah. We never did any of that. We just over these. I mean, we've done 15 shows now, and it's just nicely evolved naturally. There was one point a few shows ago where me and Sam got locked into a sort of status quo thing. We said we got locked in a perma quo. So we were consciously avoiding that then.
Yeah. I don't think that anybody who's not been on stage realizes how hot those lights get. I remember the first show that I played, I got to the third song and I was literally just thinking, oh my God, I just need to get through the next 20 minutes because I am so close to fucking fainting right now.
Yeah.
It's absolutely nuts, like especially with with the adrenaline and everything else. But let me ask you this question. Let It Fail was the first single that you guys put out off this record, if memory serves me correctly. Was there any nervousness from you as to how people would receive the music?
Yeah, just a bit. Because it would be their first taste of me being in someone else's band or being in a different thing altogether. They're used to what I do with My Dying Bride. And so I was really nervous and apprehensive about them hearing High Parasite, because you're going to get the naysayers immediately, the diehard MDB fans who are just going to say, no, not interested. But there will have been those, of course. But for the most part, people have come out and said it's bloody brilliant. It's super catchy, it's super friendly, it's goth rock pop. You can sing along to all the choruses. It's what's not to like about it. And I just think some grumpy people probably think, oh, it's not My Dying Bride, is it? But there were tons of MDB fans at these gigs because I signed a shitload of My Dying Bride merchandise while I was there. Yeah. They were all saying, it's brilliant, we love it, keep doing it, and we look forward to the next album. So it's really positive. For the most part, super positive. But yeah, when you put a new record out in a different band, I've never felt so apprehensive in all my life. What are they going to think? Are they going to think I've left My Dying Bride to pursue something completely different? And as I mentioned, it's dead easy being in more than one band. But we knew the music was solid, and we knew it was well produced. So we knew, generally speaking, it was going to be pretty successful, and it has been.
Well, so it's going by what you said about people saying, "Are you leaving My Dying Bride to pursue something else?" I mean, there was a lot of speculation about that. Obviously, I know you spoke about it on different interviews. Including the speculation came partly from me as well. I was thinking about it after I saw you in the interview, and I was reflecting on the fact that My Dying Bride are like, I would liken them in this regard to Paradise Lost to a degree, maybe Opeth. There are certain bands that people seem to be far more emotionally invested in than they would be a lot of other bands. My Dying, and what really came to the fore for me was that was the case with My Dying Bride, based on the response to initially seeing you with another band. I mean, some of the comments that you saw on on the forums, it was literally like they found you cheating on your, like your wife catches you cheating on her. Is that something that you have a sense of, that people have that degree of emotional investment in My Dying Bride? And because of that, does it make it easier or harder to deal with sometimes how, I guess, overly emotive the response could be to something that you do?
Well, I have not made it a secret at all about the guest performances I've done in the past. There's a guy in Brazil, Eduardo, and he's putting together a radio show, and he's researching everything I've sung on, and obviously asked for my cooperation. I didn't realize how long the bloody list was. And at some point you look and think, well, why am I doing all of this and not just staying with My Dying Bride? And it's because when someone writes a really great piece of music and says, Aaron, is there any chance you can stick your vocals on it? Why would I say no? It doesn't make any sense. I've turned down a whole load of stuff as well. So I've looked at the quality of the music. I've looked at the background of the acts, and if it's all seems to come together, I say yes. So My Dying Bride fans know very well that, gosh, I mean, this is my first guest vocal was James Murphy's album. Was it Dreams of the Carrion Kind?
It was Dreams of the Carrion Kind, yeah.
His band Disincarnate. This must be 30 years ago.
I'm about to say that was not, I think, 1994.
Yeah, something like that. So I went to a studio somewhere in Wales and I did some vocals for him, and it was brilliant. And that was kind of the start of it. Great. People want me to do something with other bands, so I'll do it. So MDB fans have known for decades that I do a little bit here and I do a little bit there, and it's absolutely fine. And for the most part, they'll seek out those appearances that I've done, and they'll make the purchase. And a similar thing will be happening with High Parasite. Of course, the music's different, but then every band I've sung with, the music's a bit different to My Dying Bride anyway. So I think it's never been a secret that I've done stuff with loads of other bands, but I've never been in another band like High Parasite. So I understand why some people are a little bit like, well, this is a bit different because it's not just a guest appearance. He's in the band. But as I mentioned before, there's so much time in between MDB stuff. I could be in 5 more bands and it wouldn't affect the scheduling.
Well, one of my favorite things that you did, we spoke about it the last time you were on the podcast, was that Depeche Mode cover that you recorded during COVID. Now, I do believe that we spoke about Shake the Disease as a song that you would sound fantastic singing. That seems to me to be a perfect fit for High Parasite at some point down the road.
Well, we've spoken about some covers, and I think we are going to do one. I didn't mention that one to the rest of the band because there's already a list growing about potential covers. And I'll pass you over to Danny to what we might be doing, because I think we're on the cusp maybe of recording something.
Yeah, I think possibly it has been discussed for a while, hasn't it? We've just got to whittle the list down.
Yeah.
Shake the Disease. My strong recommendation. That, or If You Think I'm Sexy by Rod Stewart. Although I think Revco probably nailed that one. One last My Dying Bride related question, more a comment really. I did laugh on the My Dying Bride Facebook group. A gentleman writes a couple of weeks ago, good news for My Dying Bride fans. I saw High Parasite supporting Cradle of Filth last week and was pleased to be able to chat to Aaron after the show. He told me that there's a new My Dying Bride EP coming out before Christmas, and My Dying Bride will definitely be touring in 2025. And it was hysterical, Aaron, that you actually responded to him. I didn't actually say those things, just mentioned My Dying Bride wasn't dead. And Sean writes, news to me.
Well, but I don't know if I've mentioned this previously. Every time MDB do an album, we always leave a couple of extra tracks over for an EP further down the road, which is exactly what we did for the last album.
I was about to say you had done it for Ghosts of Orion as well, right?
Yeah. So there's two tracks that the public I've never heard. So that's new music for them. So at some point, we're kind of hoping Nuclear Blast are going to get on the phone and say, well, let's have them then. So ergo, there's going to be an EP, I'm hoping, at some point. And I would have thought My Dying Bride would be back at some point next year. You know, we've had a long enough break, and would be probably doing live shows next year. That's what I said. But the guy was a little bit, and I think his enthusiasm, I think, got the better of him, and he clearly misquoted me. But it's fine.
Just on the topic of tipples, are you still a wine fan?
What a silly question.
I was about to say, no, well, you know what? I really stuck my foot in it when I had Greg on the podcast because I thought that Greg likes some wine. So, you know, I've just poured myself a glass. I'm like, hey, Greg, cheers. You know, I don't drink anymore.
Oh, yes.
I was so fucking like half jarred by the comments. I mean, a swig, and when I was like editing it back, I thought to myself, Jesus, that made it even worse. I'm so insensitive. A guy has just told me he's teetotal, and I respond by taking a glug of wine.
Well, you know, I think it's worthwhile cutting out the quantity, you know, because when you're in a rock band, it's easy to get drunk all of the time, and I think I drank a little bit too much while we were on the Cradle tour because your enthusiasm sometimes gets the better of you. And what, you know, after we've performed, we go out to the merch desk and people come and say hello, and you know they want to buy you a drink, and you kind of do because there's a bit of a party atmosphere going on. But boy, oh boy, do you feel it when you at the end of the tour and you realize, God, I need a break. You know, you're not 20 years old anymore, and you can't devour that much alcohol. As fun as it seems at the time, it's going to bite you back on the bum at a later date. And I don't want my liver and kidneys all falling apart. And, you know, I don't want a doctor to tell me I need to stop drinking. I think I can understand and manage it myself. And, you know, I think I'll simply take a break now till the festive period and maybe have a bit of sherry over Christmas and the New Year, and then just leave it again till probably the next time we go out.
Yeah, I've never really overindulged. I was actually teetotal when I was living in South Africa. When I came here, I started working in the city, and I was basically told, like, if you don't drink, you're not going to get hired here. So I compromised on that, and then I just developed a taste for red wine. But I never really drink to excess. I'll have like a glass of something really, really good. I disagree with Greg that the price of wine does not dictate the quality of it. Sometimes you can pick up a bargain, but once you started drinking decent wine, it's no comparison. But I will be in South Africa in January, and I'll be going to many, many wine tastings. So I'll be sending you some recommendations, no doubt, once again.
I remember we played a gig in Chile, some festival whose name escapes me, and the day after, we were in the minibus heading to the airport with David Vincent. And I was chatting. I said, David, it's a big flight for you, right? Because we're in Santiago in Chile, all the way back up. There's the whole of South America and half of North America. And he responded with, no, I'm flying further south. We're touring the vineyards. And I was suddenly so jealous, thinking, shit. And he's like, yeah, the label are paying for it and everything. And I'm thinking, grrr.
Well, I mean, there are some top-notch vineyards in Argentina. No question.
So
probably
he was hanging around South America tasting wine, and I was very jealous.
Yeah, I'd say right now my top three countries that I always try and buy from: South Africa will stay number one, probably forever. But Napa Valley, incredible stuff from there. Argentina, really, really good. And I'm finding a lot of wines I'm getting from Spain are really good as well.
Yeah, they're about the best places you've mentioned. I mean, being a British person, I am trying to enjoy British wines a bit better, but it's still very much in its infancy, I think. We just don't have the climate and the correct soil. But that doesn't mean they're bad. It just means they're different. And if you can train your palate into, welcoming these new, interesting flavors, then I think they're worth pursuing. But they're difficult to find. If you went to any of the major supermarkets today, you wouldn't find an English wine anywhere.
On Naked Wines they sell some. They sell the odd rosé, the odd sparkling wine, but they don't really sell anything else.
No, and I'm going to look into that a little bit further because I'd like to, if there's any way I can get involved with helping to promote something like that, then I think it's worthwhile. And if they give me loads of free shit, then even better.
I was about to say some sensational beers in the UK.
Oh God, yeah, there's a million.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now, Danny, just bring you back into the conversation. We spoke about possible covers being recorded. What else is on the roadmap for the next 12 months for the band?
We've been talking a lot about getting very busy live next year. We're hopefully going to Europe, doing some of our own shows in March, all being well. And then I think we've got about 10 festivals.
Oh, wow.
Europe.
Okay. So 2025 is going to be a busy year for you guys.
Yeah. Most of those festivals haven't been announced yet, but they're in the calendar to be announced soon. So I think it's about 10 and they're all over Europe. And then we are, as said right at the beginning of the interview, we're hoping to get another support slot tour towards the end of the year. The aim is to be as busy as we can be live, to promote Forever We Burn, and get out to as many people as we can. So that plan may change. We'll see, but that's where we're at right now with it. In where are we? November now. So it could all change by January, but the plan is roughly to be busy.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, very well done on a great debut record. Danny, absolute pleasure meeting you. Aaron, great seeing you again. And hopefully we bump into each other again down the road.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Talk soon.
Forever isn't that long when you're waiting to die.
Rounding off a fantastic conversation with Aaron Stainthorpe and Tombs of High Parasite, that was them with Hate Springs Eternal off their debut album Forever We Burn. It's available right now on Candlelight Records. If I was a little too effusive in my praise of that particular song, do indulge me. I just absolutely love it, and what a great experience getting to talk to those guys. Particularly happy that Aaron is in such good form. I mentioned it at the start of the podcast as well, but when he was last on the podcast back on episode, I think 72, he had just come out of, I think, a very difficult personal experience for him, and he'd also come out of an incredibly challenging recording cycle with the My Dying Bride album, The Ghost of Orion. And he really does seem to me to be a man with a new lease on life. So long may that continue. Very much looking forward to whatever High Parasite do in the future. And I'm also very glad that My Dying Bride isn't quite done yet, although I will say that based on how great their most recent record was, if that was the note upon which they will play out their career, their legacy, I think it's the perfect way to go out. But a big thank you to my guests. Make sure if you enjoy that song, you go check out the whole album. I'll post their Bandcamp link in the description to the podcast as always. And of course, if you do buy yourself anything, you let them know who sent you. Right now, my friends, I want to talk about a record that was released this past weekend. Panzerfaust put out the final chapter in their highly ambitious quadrilogy or tetralogy, I think I've heard it referred to as well. The Sons of Perdition, that kicked off, of course, in 2019, in the year of our Lord, 2019, with Chapter 1, War, a Horrid War. Really took a lot of us by surprise. I think, folks that had been following the band knew that they were capable of turning in something pretty spectacular, but I think most people wouldn't have put something, I'm trying to find the right words for it, so impactful, so well-rounded, and just a complete and utter assault on the senses that they delivered. Just absolutely extraordinary. They followed it up with a record in 2020 that I think was almost slightly better. Chapter 2, Render Unto Eden, exceptional as well. This one being a little bit more thoughtful. If you kind of think about the themes that these records are exploring, I would put Chapter 1 as the escalation of the conflict, if war is kind of the theme taking us through the 4 chapters. In Chapter 2, you're very much in the thick of things, and you're focusing on both the individual valor of the participants in this war, but also looking at the kind of wider picture, the devastation at a macro scale. Chapter 3, The Astral Drain, is that kind of difficult meditation of the aftermath of the conflict. That came out in 2022. And it got a little bit more of a mixed response, I think, than the first 2 chapters. A lot of folks didn't like the fact that it was much slower. I think much more focused on atmosphere over aggression. A lot of interludes on the record that made it feel long. Some people complained about it being bloated. I really liked it. I thought that in the grand scheme of things, in the sequencing of those chapters, I thought it fit in perfectly. And what I particularly loved about that record was the closing track on the album, Tabula Rasa, that kind of left us on a cliffhanger with, an incredibly poignant lyrical line. This is the final chance to utter the final sin. In the flood or by the fire, no one will be the wiser. I thought that just kind of set us up for a Chapter 4, which I predicted at the time was going to be all guns blazing. And sure enough, that has absolutely been the case. Chapter 4, To Shadow Zion, is a very intentional step away from the ponderous nature of its predecessor. It is basically aggressive and violent from the get-go, and it does not let up. Over the course of 5 tracks, there are no interludes. There is still some degree of atmosphere, certainly a lot of melody, but there's also a far greater emphasis on just pummeling, vicious, aggressive, violent, very definitively Panzerfaust music. Brock Van Dyke is a musical genius. The interplay between him and the main vocalist, Goliath, although they kind of share I think it's about a 60-40 split between Goliath and Brock. Either way, the vocal interplay is magnificent. Goliath sounds better than ever. And then you have this pulse that is generated by Alexander Kartashov and Thomas Gervais, the bassist, that is just phenomenal. Alexander as a drummer, I mean, a lot of websites, a lot of podcasts have spoken about how good they think he is. I've always loved him. I love the fact that he can turn up the voltage when the occasion demands it, but he can also kind of sit back and let the music do more of the talking, if that makes sense. All of this to say, I think that Chapter 4 to Shadow Zion is not only a crowning moment in Panzerfaust's already illustrious career, but I also think it's one of the very best albums of 2024, and I am extremely excited to share with you guys the conversation that I recorded with Brock at the Dome in London yesterday, at the point that I'm recording this. So one thing that I will say is, if you are easily triggered and I'm saying this kind of sarcastically because I know what my audience is like. I know you guys are going to love this, but if you're afraid of spicy conversation, this is not the one for you. We did talk at length about the record, but because of the record's real life, I wouldn't say application, but there's kind of a correlation between what they're talking about on these 4 records and what's going on in the world right now, and obviously we had to cover that. So I'll give you a little taste of what to expect. This is about a 1 minute or so sneak preview of what's coming your way next week.
Because what's happening is, and people have started to speak up about this, because it almost seemed like it was like morally irresponsible to disagree with anything that may be considered a like part of the left-wing zeitgeist. Because I'm a Canadian. We all kind of grew up center-left, kind of liberal, live and let live. We're always very open to everyone. We still are open people by any objective standard. But it just kept seeming like what was the consensus kept moving further and further left. And people were saying, what the fuck's going on here? I haven't changed my opinion. But the zeitgeist kept getting increasingly pathological and unreasonable and exclusive, frankly, because they were beginning to exclude more and more people for increasingly maybe boutique is not the right word, but identitarian issues. It seemed.
As you can see there, no quarter asked, none given. But it was awesome to meet Brock in person finally. I've had him on the podcast twice before, and we have kept in touch since. So, he's somebody I consider a friend, even more so after yesterday. And it was also awesome to see Panzerfaust live, because I think that this music comes alive in a way that it really doesn't do on album. Now, the albums are excellent, but live is an experience that I think if you are even remotely interested in Panzerfaust, now that they're on tour, make sure you catch them if they are playing in a city near you. You will not be disappointed. I would go as far as to say last night's set was one of the best sets that I've seen a black metal band perform, bar none. It was absolutely extraordinary. And even Paige, who herself, as I've mentioned many times before, is not of the scene, doesn't really care about metal, but I always kind of use her as a litmus to say if she sees a band and she thinks it's good, then it's good, because as a complete, I'm not even a neophyte, because she has no interest in the music, but as a complete outsider to be impressed by what she's seeing, that certainly tells you something. So on that note, and to fire you up for the news rant that's coming your way in just a few minutes, I'm going to play the first track off of Sons of Perdition, Chapter 4. This will also get you fired up for next week, no doubt. The song is called The Hesychasm Unchained.
We must not confuse dissent with disloyalty. We will not be driven by fear into an age of unreason. If we dig deep in our history and our doctrine, and remember that we are not descended from fearful men.
The Hesse Chasm Unchained by Panzerfaust of the final installment, the final chapter in their Sons of Perdition quadrilogy. The record is called Chapter 4 to Shadow Zion. Absolutely fucking stunning. It's available right now on Eisenwald Records. You can go and check it out on the Bandcamp link that I'll post in the description to the podcast. Do let them know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere who sent you if you buy yourself any music. Brock actually mentioned to me when I was talking to him that he had spoken to a couple of the Legion on the tour that they're currently doing with Kanonenfieber, and many of you guys were singing not only the praises of the podcast, but talking about the fact that you had discovered Panzerfaust on the show, which I greatly appreciate. And again, if there's bands that you want to see on this podcast, one of the best ways to do it is to remind them where you're hearing their music. Hint, hint, if anybody goes and they pre-order the new Scour record, one of the ways in which we're going to achieve full Anselmo in 2025 is for you guys to make your voices heard. But yeah, I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate this album. Make sure you tune in next week because it is not a conversation you are going to want to miss. But before we go any further, one little thing I want to get off my chest. If at any point in your life you have felt compelled to post a picture on social media or a story or a reel or anything of any kind with the subtext, it's beginning to feel a lot like Christmas, then it's time to hit the bricks, because this is my weekly news rant.
Round them up for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
All right, full disclosure this week, my friends. This is actually the second take of the weekly news rant. I have no idea why, but I had worked tirelessly after we came back from our trip to the Lake District to get the new episode done, have it ready for Tuesday as per usual, and for whatever reason, I just couldn't get it uploaded. I didn't say anything particularly hateful or vile, nothing more so than the norm in the news rant, but I tried 5 times on Spotify, got a file error every single time, even when I re-rendered the file and, chopped and changed a few bits. And I also had on YouTube similar issues, but I had bizarre copyright flags, like not copyright strikes. There's a difference between the two. But from time to time with the news rant, when I listen to a minute of a song or a minute of a band, you'll get a copyright flag, and then you'll need to go back and cut that little piece out. And I got them on. I got them on one song, took that bit out, then I got it on a completely different song that hadn't been flagged previously. So, fuck knows why it happened, but we are where we are. And as I was driving back home from London this morning, or not this morning, this afternoon, I thought to myself, well, I may as well just do a new news rant, keep it a bit more current, and there'll be a few more things to talk to you about. But let's start with some music. Subway to Sally has a new single out. It says here, Subway to Sally have joined with War Kings for the ultimate anthem, Stahl auf Stahl. I would assume that means steel on steel. I don't know. I'll double check that. My German isn't particularly at it's not at business proficient level. The song appears on their upcoming post-mortem record due out on December the 20th via Napalm Records. The accompanying video clip was directed by Mirko Witzki. Literally the only reason why I want to listen to this is because while we were away, I developed a bit of an obsession with dark wave, post-punk goth stuff like Boy Harsher, bands like that. Bands that Mike Hill has spoken about on Everything Went Black quite a lot. I think his enjoyment of those bands has kind of caught on with me, and I was listening to a lot of music that I wouldn't normally listen to. So I know Subway to Sally isn't exactly that kind of thing, but I do like me a bit of goth, and my recollection of this band, dim as it may be, is that they dabble in the same space. So let's hear what this new single sounds like.
Man
Now, I could let that go on for the full 60 seconds, but I'm not going to do that to you, and I am sure as fuck not going to do that to myself. What a load of shit. And yes, I was completely wrong about the fact that they could be even slightly comparable to Boy Harsher. Not only do they make entirely different kind of music, but they are, they are just complete and utter fucking bollocks. All right, moving on. Next up, we've got a brand new single by Ginger. Again, probably going to just give that one a skip. Then we've got Membaris, who announced a new album. No idea who they are. I don't think I've ever listened to any of their music. German black metalers Membaris have set January the 21st, 2025 as the official release date of their 6th full-length offering, Black Plasma Armor. Other details in the first single, Poet of Fire, can be checked out below. Let's hear what it sounds like, folks. Absolutely no question. That is earning the first top-notch award of the week. That is fucking excellent. And I have no idea how this band passed me by. Especially the fact that they're on album 6. And I don't think I've ever heard of them. They, on Metal Archives, I'm looking, they've been around since 1999. 6 albums, as I said. I'm definitely going to need to check those out. Their last record is called Misanthropy or Misanthrosophy. However it's pronounced. Came out in 2020, earns a 90% score on Metal Archives. What I heard there, I thought was absolutely tier 1. Reminds me a little bit of Abigor, like the best parts of Abigor, but you got those crazy unhinged vocals. That's kind of manic but really powerful at the same time. I love the riff. I love the melody. Yeah, everything is working. That production's really good as well. Really, really raw and gnarly sounding. This is absolutely, unequivocally a top-notch. Let's answer a quick question or two before we move on to the next song. I want to say thank you very much, by the way, to the Legion for all of the really nice, loving messages that I received, not only for episode 250 last week, but obviously, I announced that Paige and I had eloped. We had a fantastic time, got married on the 18th of November at a place called the Gilpin Lake House in a spot called Windermere, in the Lake District here in the UK. A very private ceremony, so that's why none of you were invited. It was, just essentially just us. The registrar was, for my listeners in the US, the Justice of the Peace, and we had 2 of the staff members of the hotel that were there. But this setting really could not have been more idyllic. It literally looked like something out of a Typo Negative album. Maybe I'll post 1 or 2 of the photos when they come out on Instagram, so you guys can see. But yeah, it was incredible. I won't lie, I was pretty lost for words when I saw Paige coming down. There's like a walkway where she came down, and obviously, it wasn't the typical, her coming down and some old lady playing the organ. But when I saw her, it was pretty incredible. It's kind of coming to it's kind of reaching the end of a long journey and the start of another, if that makes sense. But thank you very much to everybody for the really nice words. I really appreciated it, and I made sure that she saw all of it as well. We spent a couple of days in the Lake District after we got married, and then we went to Cardiff in Wales, where we went to go and see the Springboks doing things. And the Springboks, of course, just to remind everybody that doesn't know or doesn't give a fuck, the South African rugby team do things to the Welsh rugby team that will haunt them haunt them in their dreams for many, many years to come. Awesome. I mean, if you ever in Cardiff, I highly recommend, if you can, watch a rugby match at the Principality Stadium. The atmosphere was great. Fans were awesome. The whole thing was awesome. And brilliant that South Africa did violent and terrible things to the Welsh, and that the Welsh fans took it so well. I met a couple of rugby players as well. When we got to our hotel, we walked into reception, and literally there were like 7 or 8 of them standing there. So I was like a kid at Christmas. Met some of my very favorites, Eben Etzebeth. I met Ergie Snyman. I met Vincent Koch. I met Malcolm Marks, and I met a guy named Cheslin Colby. Cheslin Colby, the thing that was so incredible about meeting him is he's been spoken of as the greatest rugby player on the planet many, many times. And I go up to him and I say, "Hey, Cheslin, I'm Jackie." And he gets up, and in this really softly spoken, like almost so humble it catches you off guard, he goes, "Hi, I'm Cheslin." And I'm like, dude, you don't need to tell me who you are. I know you are. But I took a photo with him, had a nice chat, and as I said, great to see them play. But again, thank you very much for the kind words. I'm now a happily married man. I done got married off. Moving on to some questions. We start with one from Tizzy is Great. She asks, what are my top 3 favorite bands? The way I answer that question is to go with the first 3 bands that come to mind when I hear anything like that, because that in my view is who your favorites are. The first ones to pop into your head are who your favorite bands or your favorite movies or whatever the case may be. That's who your favorites are. My favorites: Akrokaka, Paradise Lost, Mayhem. I think between those 3, like if somebody put a gun to my head and said, for the rest of your life, you have to listen to the same 3 bands forever, I think you'd have enough diversity and enough quality across those 3 that you'd be pretty happy. With Akrokaka, you of course have the run of form that they went on between Goat of Mendes, Corrins, and Words That Go Unspoken, and in my opinion, Antichrist fits in that as well. That is just, I mean, it's unparalleled. You have with Paradise Lost a band that basically never put out a bad record. As I said to Aaron on the interview segment of the podcast, even when they did a record that wasn't quite, actually I didn't say it to Aaron, I said it to Tubes, but I said it to both of them. Even when they put out a record that wasn't quite, their best, like Believe in Nothing, it's still a 7 out of 10 album, in my opinion. And then with Mayhem, you've got so many different approaches to the traditional Norwegian black metal style across all of their albums that, again, I think you'd be. I wouldn't mind listening to that for the rest of my life if that was the choice. Listen to this or silence forever. Runner-ups, I would say the Antichrist Imperium. I know they only have 3 albums, but all 3 records are absolutely perfect. I might actually put Panzerfaust in there as well, possibly Ecclese, possibly Marduk, and I can probably keep going on with the runner-ups, but that's just going to be unfair. But top 3, you got my answer. Griff_in_2 has asked, who are my top 3 Springbok players of all time? I'm going to be quick about this because, again, I know the majority of people that listen to this podcast are in the States, and I know you guys don't watch rugby, so I'll very, very quickly. Eben Etzebeth, so got to meet him. Cheslin Colby, who I got to meet. And then the third one is tough. This entire current squad that we have, I think, is the best squad we have ever produced as a country. And, then there's also guys that go back to like a decade, 2 decades ago. I'd probably say Victor Matfield. So there you go. On to some music again. Grob. I'm assuming it's pronounced Grob because you have the umlaut on the A. It's spelled Grab. But anyway, let's go with Grob. Black metal duo Grob debut a lyric video for Kerker Moasta, translated as Dungeon Keeper, the first single from their forthcoming second album, Kremnes, or Funeral Feast. The latter comes out on February the 21st, 2025, via Prophecy Productions. Swartalv and I spoke last week about Prophecy Productions signing up a whole bunch of bands at the moment. They've been a bit hit or miss in the old quality control department as well, if we're perfectly honest. But let's hear what Kerker Moasta sounds like. Another German black metal band, and another one that I really like. I would actually go as far as to award these folks, or these two lads, with a top notch as well, because the longer that song went on, the more I enjoyed it. Very atmospheric, but enough severity to keep, a salty dog like myself interested. Like, as I said many times before, too much atmosphere. There's very, very few bands that can pull off kind of pure atmospheric black metal. I like severity and anger in black metal. I think it's in 99.9% of the time it's central to the music working, in my opinion, or at least appealing to me. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say I hear a huge amount of anger, but I certainly hear a lot of atmosphere. But it's delivered with a lot of passion and a degree of intensity that really appeals to me. And as that song progressed, as it went on, I liked it more and more. It's a soft top notch, because if I compare it to the band we just heard, I wouldn't say it's better than that. I thought that Membaris or Membaris or whatever, however you pronounce it, that single was really fucking excellent. I mean, there was no question about it. But this is very good too, and it's got me interested enough to hear the rest of the record for sure when that gets released. It's starting to look like 2025 is going to be a hell of a year. We spoke obviously about potential for new Mayhem to be coming out next year. You would assume that a couple of the bigger names that haven't been in the studio for a while may potentially do so, and then just as kind of the beginning of the year's lineup is getting revealed, it seems like we're not really going to go through that lull that we've gone through in some years previously, where January and February just tend to be a little bit dead. So, and I'm on board for it. Speaking of music that's going to be coming out at the beginning of the year, it says here Barshaketh detailed their new studio album on January the 9th, 2025. Black metal formation Barshaketh will put out their 5th studio record entitled Antinomium Asceticism. to taste the first piece of the new music, give a listen to the opening track, Radiant Aperture. A lot of fucking tongue twisters in this week's news rant. And Barshaketh is another band that I have not really had on my radar. So let's hear whether or not that has been justified or whether that was another big miss like Membaris earlier. Folks, that is the third top notch in a row, and this one there is no question about. That is fucking fantastic. Looking at Metal Archive, it seems like Barshaketh originated in New Zealand, but the folks in the band moved to Edinburgh in Scotland at some point. I don't know when. Just if you hear that racket in the background, that's the dog scratching at the door. She doesn't like closed doors in the house, so let me just open that. She was very aggrieved that her family had abandoned her for a week, so she's been particularly clingy of late, but she can be as clingy as she wants to be. She's of greater importance to me than most human beings. Anyway, getting back to Barshaketh. So from New Zealand originally, relocated to Edinburgh in Scotland. Really where they base themselves is irrelevant to me because that song, the first 1 minute 33 seconds that we just heard, is fucking spectacular. Great production, fury, speed, hatred, cult, true, TRVE, true. I fucking love it. Absolutely love it. And again, I don't know why this band was not on my radar previously. Fifth record, as it says there. Their first one came out in 2010. And this one, much like Membaris, is also being released by World Terror Committee. So I kind of feel like that's a label that I may have overlooked a little bit. Looking at some of the stuff that they've got on their label, so they've got Sargeist, which is cool. They also have Horner, which is fucking brilliant. That new Horner album is a complete and utter masterpiece. But yeah, I'm gonna need to check out some more of their bands, and I'm certainly going to need to check out Barshaketh in far greater detail than I've done. Since I haven't done it whatsoever, I need to start exploring and discovering. But yeah, love that. Absolutely fucking love that. All right, let's answer a couple more questions. Swords_sorcery_metal asks, did I like the new Opeth? He says, I'm a bit on the fence. Thank you for making the best podcast ever. Not the bed podcast, the best. First of all, thank you very much for those very kind words. I really appreciate it. I have not really listened to the new Opeth because it had the misfortune of being released on the same weekend as the new Panzerfaust. And so that's where I spent the vast majority of my listening time. I did enjoy the first single off the album, the one that brought the growls back. The second single that leans, again, far more into the progressive side of things is not my tempo. I don't hate it, But progressive stuff isn't bad, but there has to be something that kind of brings it back to the kind of music that I like, which is, nasty, aggressive, angry, impactful music, and it just doesn't have that. I also find with that style of music, it becomes so self-indulgent that it sort of becomes redundant. And I think that Opeth have dabbled with that an awful lot on their last couple of albums. I'm an enormous fan of early Opeth, no question about that. I mean, everything up to and including Blackwater Park is perfection in my opinion. But latter day Opeth has not been all that great. But that being said, as I said, I've not paid proper attention to the record yet, so I could very well be sitting here in a couple of months' time saying, this is incredible, one of the best albums of the year. I probably need to give it a proper listen before I do, my countdown of the best of albums of 2024, that's for sure. Grind Your Mind 77 asks, ever had a guest that's made you think, fuck this asshole, but couldn't say it? No, and I'm terrified of that happening because, I generally speaking, especially nowadays, I only get people on the podcast whose music I like and who I want to talk to. But I'm terrified of it happening because I'm scared that the person turns out to be an asshole and then I can never listen to their music ever again. So fortunately, in 250 episodes, that has not happened. I've had 2 instances of guests where I've just kind of thought to myself afterwards, like, I wouldn't have them back on the show again. I will not say who it was, and for those speculating, no, it was not our friend from Tudor. At the very least, with him, he brought a reasonably sizable audience with him. The 2 bands in question brought neither audience nor entertainment, and in both cases, one of them was so dull. I thought personally it was so dull that as I was putting the episode together, I actually thought, like, I might just have to shelve this. I was so fucking bored. I felt like I needed to shelve it, and ultimately I ended up running it. I did do a Hail Mary, and I asked Marco to do the news rant with me for that particular one. If you go back and you check out the ones that he's been on with me, you might be able to deduce who I'm talking about now. But I had to get him on just to make sure there was something interesting later on in the show. Nowadays, I don't think I would put out an episode like that. If that were to happen again, I would just call things short, in a half an hour, 40 minutes time, and I just wouldn't release the episode because I have too much respect for the Legion to do that. And it was so touching to me how many great things were said about this podcast after the release of episode 250, that again, I need to show that respect back to all of you and make sure that every single episode I put out is the best it can possibly be. And I put a lot of time into this. I mean, I don't make any money out of it. I don't want to make any money out of it. But there's a pride thing and there's a respect thing for your audience. So I will never again release an episode that I think is boring. Fortunately, those days are also over. I can be more selective with who I get on the podcast now. The one thing I can also tell you that I will never again do, I will never, ever feature a band on the Underground Spotlight or fucking anywhere on this podcast that sends me a Bandcamp link and expects me to pay for the privilege of promoting them. I will very often go and buy stuff off their Bandcamp just to promote the band if I like what I hear. Or just to support, I should say, not promote. But at least give me the fucking, give me the option. Like, if you're gonna send me something for me to share with the Legion, I'm sorry, but you're not gonna fucking just expect me to pay for the privilege. If that's the case, you can go fuck yourself. I'm sure there's other fucking shitty podcasts that you can send your tripe to. Anyway, on to some more music. Fides Inversa stream Pillars of the Adversary track. Black metalers Fides Inversa are premiering a new track called Pillars of the Adversary, which will be part, and they've left out B there, which is why I misspoke, which will be part of their soon-to-be-released music output Pillars, mixed and mastered by Gabriel Gramaglia at Crepuscular Sound Studio. I like that very much. My verdict is going to be that it receives a thumbs up, not a top notch. And the reason for that is something feels a little off in that drum performance. I can't put my finger on what it is. I don't want to keep using the phrase "not my tempo," but you know when the great J.K. Simmons on Whiplash is talking about just a hair off. There's something about those drums that feel to me to be just a hair off. I'm still very interested in hearing what the whole thing sounds like when it comes out. But yeah, that's really my main gripe with it. When the song started, I kind of thought, Jesus Christ, this Crepuscular Sound Studio, an old Sony Walkman that had a microphone, and they just recorded this in the band room. But then obviously, it kind of morphs into something that's a little bit more modern, a little bit more 2024. And the song itself is good. Good riff, good performance. Sounds mostly like they're on the right track. Just those drums that I'm not quite feeling that. But as I said, still gets a thumbs up, and I definitely want to. Hear the whole thing when it gets released. All right. Ingested have parted ways with their vocalist Jason Evans after nearly 2 decades together. UK death metal / deathcore outfit Ingested and co-founder vocalist Jason Evans have decided to go their separate ways. I don't really care enough about that band to really dig into why that happened, so we move on. Decomposition of Entrails released a new track called Primal Atrocity. I thought it was longer than that, but yeah, new track is called Primal Atrocity. It says here, brutal death metalers Decomposition of Entrails have shared a new single called Primal Atrocity, featuring guest vocals from Clayton Mead of Condemned. Let's hear what it sounds like. It's very entertaining. That fucking depth charge that they've got before the breakdown kicks in reminds me of Annotations of an Autopsy. Also reminds me a little bit of Pyrexia, that song. But, again, that's a style of music that really, in terms of or creatively, has reached its peak. I mean, there's no one is doing anything in that style of music, or frankly, I don't personally think can do anything in that style of music that is going to be in any way new or different or interesting. So it's kind of like once you've heard 2-3 songs, what else is there to hear? There are a couple of bands that can pull off a solid full-length album of that style and do it really, really well. Pyrexia is one of them. That last Pyrexia record, I'm trying to remember what the name was. It escapes me now. It'll come back to me in a second. That was fucking genius. And of course, the true masters of that style, undefeated and undisputed, are Dying Fetus. So it's kind of like, would I listen to that band or would I listen to Dying Fetus? There's no question what I would want to hear instead. By the way, the Pyrexia record that I was referring to, Gravitas Maximus, out on Unique Leader Records on December the 10th, 2021. Proof that if you're not a fucking complete and utter douchebag who's desperate for clicks and desperate for traffic on your failing website, you wait until the beginning of 2025 to release your best of 2024, because there's a lot of stuff coming out in December that's worth hearing. And I refuse to believe that the people that are putting out lists in the beginning of November, even now, have managed to work their way through everything that was coming out in the year. Anyways, let's go on to a couple more questions. Metal Sheck asks, what is my favorite Bathory record? That is extremely easy. It is the first Bathory record. I like most of the first 5, but the first Bathory album, between Sacrifice, Necromancy, Hades, In Conspiracy with Satan, I mean, it's just fucking brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Runner-up for me would be Hammerheart. I've got a real soft spot for that. I also really, really like Blood, Fire, Death. I'd actually say maybe the official runner-up would be Blood, Fire, Death. By the way, thank you very much to everybody who sent in questions. I will, if I don't get to your questions on this news rant, it'll be on a future news rant for sure. But I really appreciate everyone doing that, and I want to continue doing this. I know got great feedback last time that I incorporated it into the news rant, so expect it to be a mainstay of any solo news rant I do from now on. Let's make it two-way, and I just love generally talking to you guys. I had a brilliant dude come up to me at the Panzerfaust show named Tom, who spoke to me about the podcast and about the fact that he's a big fan of the Horsemen and whatnot. Great guy, and just I'm glad that the podcast attracts high quality individuals and a high quality audience. All right, Bizarre Cult asks, what is my favorite black metal album this year? I will not reveal that until the time is ripe in 2025. But I can tell you on the short list, without a doubt, the new Horner, the new Ecclese, the new Panzerfaust, the new Inquisition, the new Hordem Rife. I really, really loved the new Horned Almighty. Those are probably the first ones that spring to mind. That new Horner album, God, I am so fucking obsessed with it. I can't tell you. And frankly, that's the case for all of the bands on that list that I just mentioned now. So I will be doing my usual countdown at the beginning of the year. So once again, partly because it changes in my own head sometimes. So plan is to do shows up to and including December the 24th. Go on holiday on December the 31st. I'm back on January the 14th. Fucking annoyingly, I can only be out for 2 weeks this year. And then I'm probably going to kick off the week after. So by my count, that's going to be, fuck knows, probably like the 22nd or the 23rd of January. And we'll do a 3-parter, top 30 of 2024, guests to be confirmed. I actually probably need to reach out to them and confirm it, but may include the usual suspects. I like the fact that Sensei Mike Hill and I have been doing we kind of made it a standing tradition that he does the top 10 with me, and hopefully he agrees to continue that. I'll certainly have the Sinister Minister back on. Can't not have that legend. And then, who knows? We might have the great Dave Berardi and a couple of other folks joining as well. We'll work it out. Nathan Glover of Gravier always has fucking brilliant stuff to add to the list. Like, he's a must for any of these countdowns because he's got such a broad taste in music. You have to have the guy on. So, but anyways, we will be doing that, and then as I said, the first 3 episodes will be covering the best of 2024, and then we kick off again in earnest. I am so fucking excited, by the way, about what 2025 potentially holds for this podcast, because I feel like this year I got the training wheels off on a lot of different things, and really since Inferno, I feel like the momentum behind the show has been bigger than ever. And now that I've done a bunch of these face-to-face conversations, next year I plan to do a lot more. And between what we're going to be able to do at Inferno, Fortress, and possibly Beyond the Gates next year, because I'm planning to go to all 3. Yeah, I think there's excitement coming your way, Legion. And again, none of this would be possible without your support. And last week, I mean, I've always been very grateful for it, but last week that really hit home. I have the fucking best audience on the face of the earth. No question about it. Okay, Molotov Solution drop a new single. It's called Mortis Imperium. Las Vegas, Nevada-based deathcore force Molotov Solution are unveiling a Dylan Hrdchek-directed official video for their newest single titled Mortis Imperium. The latter was engineered, mixed, and mastered by Will Putney at Graphic Nature Studios. Will Putney, of course, of Fit for an Autopsy fame. Molotov Solution is one of those few deathcore bands that don't immediately end up in the septic tank of the rest of the genre, shite like Slaughter to Prevail, Whitechapel, the all show and no go crowd, people that sound really pissed off, but they're actually fucking just estrogen, low testosterone pricks. And Molotov Solution kind of do that because, much like a band like Carnifex, they take creative license with a genre, and they throw in a little bit of melody here and there. Sometimes it's like borderline black metal influences that they put into their music. And they had one song on there's an album that they put out in 2011 called Insurrection. The song was called The Final Hour. Fucking brilliant. It was one of those real lightning in a bottle moments for a band. They've never quite released anything else that was quite that good, but very, very good. So either way, that is why I'm giving them an opportunity this time around. I know we listened to their first single, and I wasn't very impressed with that. When I say first single, I mean the first new single since they've come back, because I think Insurrection was the last full-length record that they released. But without any further ado, let's hear what Mortis Imperium sounds like. Let me pause it there. So I think the song starts off with a lot of promise. That opening riff it's not the most inventive, but it's really heavy. It's really crushing. I think the vocalist Nick Arthur sounds, really gargantuan. Again, unlike those the show and go folk that pretend to be angry, I don't really think that there's any pretense here. He really sounds pissed off. That's good. Then we get to that riff at around it's like 1 minute 10 seconds. It really kicks off, and it just feels very lazy. It's kind of this filler riff where it's as though they decided, okay, they got the skeleton outline at 1 minute 10 seconds. The song needs to speed up, but we don't quite know how we're going to make it speed up. So it just sounds like it's pieced together. It sounds like it's pieced together from different ideas. And the idea for the intro was of substantially higher quality than the idea for that riff at the 1 minute 10 second mark. And it kind of carries on like that then for 25, 30 seconds. Some bands can pull that off really, really well. So like if you listen to Satyricon as an example, and I've got a soft spot for post Nemesis to Venus Satyricon, and they started doing this really from Rebel Extravaganza onwards. They'll have these bridge riffs in there, but those bridge riffs are almost intentionally simplistic, or I'm trying to find the right word for it. Let's just stick with simplistic. They're intentionally simplistic, but they're there, as Sator has actually admitted many times in interviews, to then set up for the big payoff. Now, question is, does Molotov Solution set us up for a payoff? Let's carry on with the song. There's some payoff there for sure. You know, it's not blowing me away. It's certainly not better than the final hour, but it's not bad. So, you know, am I going to jump up and down for joy at the fact that these guys are back and, you know, are going to be putting out a new album? Not hugely. But it's certainly not, it's definitely a huge cut above Whitechapel, Chelsea Grin, Slaughter to Prevail, and all the other fucking shite in that scene. Now, one of the bands that earned me a copyright flag, inexplicably, because they're on a small label, so normally the smaller labels you can get by that relatively unscathed. I expect perhaps that flag was raised because I didn't like the song. The song in question is Blades Will Cut by a band called Revolting. And I thought that I was being quite measured about it because it features, Revolting features Roger Johansson. Roger Johansson is also in Paganizer, who we listened to a while back. Didn't like that. He's in Rib Spreader. Rib Spreader is a pretty decent band. Revolting, this Blades Will Cut track is not good. I mean, it's just typical, typical like Swedish old school death metal worship with a bit of melody thrown in for good measure, and one of the most unintentionally hilarious lyrics I've ever fucking read in my life. I think it's something to the effect of "to kill the scum of scums." So it's shite. But anyway, I thought I would just mention that they were one of the bands that got the previous version of this episode blocked on YouTube. But yeah, no point in even trying to listen to it again because we'll obviously just run into the same problem. But the song stinks. Just in case you want to go and hear for yourself. Marilyn Manson debut One Assassination Under God. I hate wordplay like that. You know, when it's like they take One Nation Under God and they change like one word, like One Assassination Under God. Like it's supposed to be incredibly clever. I generally find that Marilyn Manson is somebody who thinks he is an awful lot more clever than he actually is. And I find that many of his mind-melted fans agree, partly because of a 20-second cameo on a fucking dogshit documentary by an equally stupid man in Michael Moore. The documentary in question, of course, being Bowling for Columbine. What I've heard of Marilyn Manson, the man, from people in the industry is that he is a fucking asshole of the first order. And I say that as somebody who actually digs quite a lot of the music on the first 4 Marilyn Manson albums. I think especially Antichrist Superstar, Mechanical Animals, and Hollywood have some fucking banger tracks. Post that, he's not been able to produce anything really that was any good. 1 or 2 songs on the albums from then are out, but nothing in comparison to that. But this new music I've heard of him so far, shite. And as I said, from my understanding, I don't know the bloke personally. I might be completely wrong, but from my understanding, he's a fucking knob. All right, let's listen to something else. The Sun's Journey Through the Night have posted a new single. British black metal entity The Sun's Journey Through the Night has recently dropped a brand new single, No Light Left to Bear. You can listen to it via the YouTube or Bandcamp players. Recorded, mixed, and mastered by, wait for it, Ashley Sheldon. The great Ashley Sheldon. Let's hear what it sounds like. I'm going to say this with the greatest of respect. If that was intentional from one Ashley Sheldon for the song to sound that way, then he or she needs to give the Sun's Journey Through the Night their money back, and he or she needs to go back to fucking audio school. That is atrocious. I like raw production, but I mean, that sounds to me like a fucking 64 kilobit per second MP3. It is the worst recording I think I've heard in the last 5 years. The song itself is okay. It gets completely buried under that shit production. And it's not helped by the fact that you've got a vocalist that sounds very similar to that weedy little nerd from Harakiri for the Sky. And that is just, I actually really hate that. The more I reflect upon that style of vocaling in black metal, the more the old head in me comes out, and I just feel like it has no place in black metal. It sounds fucking terrible. It sounds like emo shit infiltrating a scene in wherein there should be no space for emo. Like, emo and black metal should be kept apart like fucking Republicans and Antifa. You know what I mean? Okay, let's listen to one or two more songs before we head over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music. We've got Saor, who are headlining shows in Europe, but I know that there's a Saor single out, so let me just scroll down to find that, because I do want to listen to it. Andy Marshall, of course, of Saor, is a fucking top-notch guy. He's been on the podcast before. Hopefully we'll get him on again at some point, maybe early next year, to talk about the new album. But again, in full disclosure, I've actually heard the song. He sent it to me a while back, and I really like it, which is why I wanted to share it with you guys. Saor is a band that, for some folks maybe hasn't always landed, because I think Andy has been quite careful not to lean too heavily into the black metal side of things. However, the caution has been removed, because in the new music, I think it's much more black metal than stuff that he's done previously, and the music is better off for it. So I want you guys to hear what it sounds like. It says here, Scotland's Saor has disclosed details and a first single in connection with a new album release. Dubbed Amidst the Ruins, it'll be set free through Season of Mist on the 7th of February 2025. The 5-piece music effort was mixed by Chris Fielding and mastered by Tony Lindgren. Just one thing to say, Andy gets a bit of shit online from the cancel mob as well. And I think of everyone who's been targeted, whether it's Nas, whether it's Brock from Panzerfaust, he's probably the dude where I think it's the most unfair, because he is such an incredibly nice guy, generally speaking, completely apolitical in his thinking. Just a guy I would vouch for any day of the week and twice on Sunday. And I think people that have cast aspersions at the man really should get over themselves. They don't know him. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. As I said, I just think it's bullying. It's unfair and it's fucking stupid. Whatever he did when he was very young, I mean, again, people change. No one remains static in their viewpoint for all eternity. But again, you can't reason with these fucking idiots. That being said, let's hear Amidst the Ruins. Right, so unpacking this. Firstly, whoever shot this video, kudos, because, I mean, clearly someone somewhere agrees with me that this new Saor album has got, some pretty lengthy runway ahead of it, because it looks like there's some money that's gone into this. And if there hasn't been, then fucking well done, because you've made it look like there has been. So, but secondly, I think what really, really works on this album is that leaning into the black metal side of things more. I feel like this is from everything that I've listened to from this band previously, this is the album, or at least the song, where I most clearly hear that melding of traditional Scottish kind of folk influences with black metal, and it works very, very well because each element is given just the appropriate amount of space in the song to exist. I think Andy sounds great. The production sounds fucking superb. I can see this band going on tour with a band like Winter Filleth and absolutely killing it. I love it. Absolutely love it. And of course, I am biased. I'm going to give it a top notch because I'm biased and it's my podcast and I can say what I want. But no, I'm only kidding. But as I said, I definitely will have Andy on the show. I really do like that song, which is why I wanted to share it with you. A couple more questions before we play the last song and head over to Blabbermouth. Let's quickly check. We've got Kotshay Besmertny asking me, what are my favorite places that I've been to? I'm assuming places that I've not lived in, or what you're referring to. I would say I really like Dubai. I really, really liked Hong Kong. I love Geneva. Loved Oslo. Oslo is probably my favorite city that I've not been to, or that I've been to outside of the usual suspects, Cape Town, places like that. I was in Santa Clara in California in 2020, and I really, really liked that. I was also briefly in San Francisco, and as much as I had a really delicious lunch there, the place itself is fucking awful. Trying to think what else. Yeah, those would be my favorite ones. Oslo, Dubai, Hong Kong, Geneva, Santa Clara. I'd love to visit Australia. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to visit Australia in the next 2 to 3 years at most. Like max, within 3 years I'll be there. And I want to go to a lot more places in the US. I plan on starving myself and going to Texas for a month and eating my way through every single barbecue restaurant that I can find. Although that being said, there's plenty of starving to do because I also looked at myself on that Panzerfaust video, and clearly I've been enjoying myself way too much over the last 10 days of eating at fucking fancy restaurants every single night and whatnot. By the way, speaking of fancy restaurants, when we were in Cardiff, we also had the pleasure of having dinner with Cheyenne and his lovely new fiancée, Hazel. So I want to say congratulations to the young man, first and foremost, for getting engaged. But secondly, what a pleasure seeing them again. Cheyenne has really turned into somebody that I would regard as one of my best friends over the course of the last year in particular. He's just somebody that I hit it off with immediately, and I think we see eye to eye on an awful lot of things, but I think we're also confident enough in who we are that we can coexist in our differences. But he's just a guy I have tremendous admiration for, and I really do regard him as a very, very good friend. As I said, it was great to see them again. Abhorrent_guitars asks, is Nachtmuseum verboten? No, they're not verboten. I just don't fucking like the new album. I think it's fucking atrocious, to be honest. I think that there was stuff in their back catalogue that was decent, and myself and the Sinister Minister actually spoke about that in great detail. If I had to reference them again, I would say Instinct Decay is a good album. Assassins Black Metal Parts 1 and 2, very cool. I quite like The World We Left Behind. But this Blight Privilege is the biggest pile of shit that I've heard in a long time. It really is atrocious. One more question. James84 asks, would I put on an ITN all-day gig? If so, what bands would you try to get? So I think there's a couple of ways in which you could do this. When I say do this, I mean answer the question. Either it could be what happens if I win the Euro Millions and I got millions of pounds to spend on my, ideal dream, into the Necrosphere one-day festival. I think there, we're going to be talking about bands like Panzerfaust, Mayhem, Marduk, Horner. I'd get Akukaka, Demand, they wear the suits. And I'd pay some money to get maybe Antichrist Imperium or Werewolves in on that action as well. But what I would really like to do, and this thought has crossed my mind, don't take it as read that this is actually going to happen, but it's something I've thought about. I would love to have an Into the Necrosphere all-dayer, or even if it's just like a gig where the doors open at 3 in the afternoon, where we get bands that are either directly within the Horseman universe or within kind of the Horseman ecosystem. So it could be like, for example, here's what I'm thinking. A couple of years ago, Mike Hill and Tombs put out a fucking brilliant cover of the Sam Hain song, The Shift. I spoke to him at the time about it on the podcast. I would love for them to do, in the same way that Glenn Danzig did Danzig Sings Elvis, I would love for there to be a Tombs Sings Sam Hain show. One-off, you would certainly want to record it, but one-off, very special show where they do maybe 12 to 14, 15 Sam Hain songs. Maybe you could throw in a couple of Misfits tracks in there as well for good measure. But that would be my headliner. I would also love to then get on that show. You'd certainly have to have Trivax. You'd almost certainly have to have Ultha. You would want to get on, again, if I had the money, I'd get my man Drugoth to come over and play a show as Drugoth. We'd certainly want to get Matt Prizzo over. The fucking best thing would be getting Sam Loynes, David Gray, the great Sam Bean, the fucking absolute men amongst men, Matt Wilcock, and they do, again, a special Antichrist Imperium set. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that I would love to do. Something that is Horseman adjacent, Legion adjacent, I think would be absolutely brilliant. And if at some point I've got the finances and the time to host that, I will definitely do it. And I don't think that's entirely outside the realms of possibility either. So, let's see. Let's see what happens over the next couple of years. All right, one more song, and then it's blabbermouth time. Grima have got a new video out. They've also announced some tour dates, which is weird because as far as I know, they're still based in Russia. And I'm probably just completely and utterly ignorant, but I wouldn't assume that, flying out of Russia is all that easy at the moment. But either way, good for them. That last Grima record I thought was pretty decent. It says here, Russian black metalers Grima proudly present the video to Skull Gatherers from the upcoming Nuclear Blast album Nightside, out on February the 28th, 2025. The band have also revealed the dates of their upcoming tour. Now, some have complained about Grima, about anyone, quote-unquote, platforming Grima, because how dare you play a band from Russia when they are our enemy? They are not our enemy. Their government are acting in a way that is untoward and fucking downright evil, depending on where you live. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the guys in Grima agree with them. So if you feel like we now by default have to hate every single person who's from Russia, then you can fuck off. Number one, to get over yourself. Just because you live in a country doesn't mean you agree with the government. Christ almighty, anybody that's from the UK or from the US should be able to relate to that. But that tangent aside, let's hear what Skull Gatherer sounds like. I mean, I think it's only right that is given is it now the 5th top-notch award of this installment of the News Rant? That's fucking fantastic. That's probably the best Grima song I've ever heard. And I love those post-punk influences that you have in the main riff. Really, really fucking good. I love the music video as well. Very artistically done. Like the demonic version of Treebeard from Lord of the Rings. Then they also, kind of like Saor do with the Scottish influences, they have those kind of Russian folk music influences that they very subtly introduce into the song, and I think that works very well too. So, brilliant. Mark February the 28th on your calendars, because that is going to be a record worth checking out, I believe. Okay, we head over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music. One thing that I wanted to mention real quick. I thought it was hysterical that they made, or that Blabbermouth made such a fucking song and dance of the fact that they were fleeing to Blue Sky, the alternative, the non-hateful alternative to Twitter, now known, of course, as X, a place where that dastardly Elon Musk allows people to freely express themselves. The thing that makes the whole Blue Sky palaver so fucking funny is that Blabbermouth now joined the ranks of some pretty interesting characters. Libs of Blue Sky is an account that monitors some of the posts, some of the insanity that's being posted over there. And I thought I would share it with you because I just thought it was absolutely hysterical. Junebug, who goes by the handle Foodie Savant, says, "Leave the sports on X, please. As soon as we start posting about sports ball, we will get all these big name accounts to come and ruin it for the rest of us. It's a Trojan horse for the far right." So, and it kind of descends into madness from there. At Shotnobi says, "This is going to come off as selfish, but I need advice. When I move away and start a new life with my partner, I want to distance myself from my family. My family is hyper-conservative. However, I'm expected to inherit a house from my mother when she passes, and in reality, I would like the house. So, Mom, I hate you, but I would really love for you to leave me all of your possessions, your most valuable possessions, in the midst of your passing." Jeff Tiedrick posts, "I don't know about you, but I'm excited to live in a country where its chief executive is decided by an arcane process designed to give outsized advantage to slaveholders." Absolutely fucking insane. And then, like I said, it just gets worse from there. Nemi the Doggy writes, "Hello, my name is Nemesis Valentine, and you have found my page. I'm a 21-year-old autistic, polyamorous, trans femme dyke, and use it, she, pup pronouns. I will be making and reposting sensitive and not safe for work posts, so like DNI if that's not for you." And by the way, I'm not suggesting that some of this craziness isn't available en masse over on what's his face on X. But what I am saying is, when you think that Blue Sky is going to be your safe space from hatred, and you're surrounded by these grand slams, fucking hell, you got some long hard words to have with yourself. Kit Wild writes, "Just because my diaper leaked and I'm wearing the new Snuggly Bears Emp B-Sky Social Small Cap doesn't mean I'm small, does it?" So where it goes from being just pure examples of mental instability to, absolute criminal derangement, Apologetic Optimist writes, "You're simply wrong. Minor attraction doesn't start existing because of neglect. Literally anyone can have it. I know people with supportive families who are minor attracted. Normalization would actually lead to easier access of support." I can tell you as a parent that the only level of normalization that somebody who's minor attracted is going to get from me is the level of normalization that occurs when the bullets from my AK-47 merge with your skull. I'm a very tolerant person. I, generally speaking, believe that consenting adults should be able to live their life in the privacy of their own homes in whichever way they choose, as long as they're not hurting anybody else. But I am never in a fucking million years going to accept this map minor attracted person fucking bullshit that I see some folks on the fringes of the lunatic left trying to push on me. Never. I'd sooner fucking die than accept that. So anyway, let's move on. Orianthe returning to Alice Cooper's band. That is interesting for the main reason that Orianthe was, I think she toured with Richie Sambora, and if you go on YouTube, you can see them do a clip of, or there's a clip of them doing an acoustic version of Bad Company. I think I've played it on the News Rant before, and that then goes into Wanted Dead or Alive, but good Lord, is it fucking incredible. I don't know why they never ever recorded it, but yeah, it's absolutely exceptional. We also have Zach Wild saying, touring with Pantera is easy peasy. It's really like a huge family vibe, particularly easy peasy when the money is green, if you know what I mean. I mean, I don't know how much they would have been paid for that tour, but I certainly think there's no question about a comfortable retirement after this Pantera reunion, that's for sure. Armored Saints John Bush says most important advice he was ever given came from his mother-in-law. Spoiler alert, his mother-in-law apparently told him, wash your balls. Particularly insightful. But John Bush I've met, he is a fantastic guy, and I will this is a hill I will die on. Anthrax did that man dirty. They were at their best when he was in the band. I saw them live twice with him as the front man, and they were phenomenal. Then I saw them with Joey Belladonna, and I could only stand 3 songs before I just left in disgust. Max Cavalera is returning to the tribal groove power on next Soulfly album. Let's go back to what it was in the beginning. It means that he is going to be doing another new metal album, which frankly, the quality of these Cavalera Conspiracy re-recordings of Morbid Visions, Bestial Devastation, and Schizophrenia is so good that, to my mind, Max has a free pass now for the rest of his life. He can do whatever he wants. He can go and record a record with Megan the Stallion, and I'd say that's absolutely fine. You can appear in the sequel to Ariana Grande's Wicked, and I'd go, fucking good on you, Max. So that's how strongly I feel about it. The dude he's given himself indemnity for life after those Cavalera Conspiracy re-recordings, because they really are just fucking astonishing. All right, let's wrap up with one more question, and I love the question, which is why I wanted to finish up on this note. Razor Eater Metal asks, you can only listen to 3 albums for the rest of your life. What would the albums be? Again, first 3 that come to mind, it would be, and I'm gonna include non-metal year as well, even though it's only 3, so it's not like it's a huge number of options. But Corazon by Akrokaka, without a doubt, my favorite album of all time. It would be incredibly difficult to pick a record by Paradise Lost, but I think I'm going to go with Icon. And then I want to throw in a non-metal album there as well. That is going to be Songs for the Deaf by Queens of the Stone Age. I fucking adore that record. I mean, there's a bunch of other stuff, but, the first 3 that popped to mind, those records, that's what I would listen to for the rest of my life. So again, thank you very much for all the questions. Keep them coming. When I do the next solo news rant, I'll put the call out on Instagram again. And you guys, again, if I've not gotten around to your questions, I will do that on the next solo news rant, if you send some stuff in. There's actually one in particular that a high-ranking member of the Legion named Cam Shave sent across to me. I kind of need probably some time to think about my answer for that one. So I'll leave you in suspense as to what the question was, just based on that little nugget. But I want to say thank you once again to Aaron and to Toombs for their time. I want to say thank you to you, the Legion, for checking out this episode of the podcast, bearing with me as I battled the fucking scheduling and upload issues. I am back next week, Tuesday, as promised, and you're going to get yourself a fucking earful of myself and Brock Van Dyke of Panzerfaust. On that note, my friends, whatever it is that you are doing and wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.